Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel.
Jason Levine.
Today we're taking a look at Tiny Epic Western. This is the fourth game in a series of the Tiny Epic games. The first was Tiny Epic Kingdoms, then Tiny Epic Defenders, then Tiny Epic Galaxies, and now Tiny Epic Western. Up to this point, I really liked Tiny Epic Galaxies. I thought Tiny Epic Kingdoms was okay, and I hated Tiny Epic Defenders, so kind of all over the board. This one's a theme I like. I don't think there's enough good Western games out there.
Nope.
And gambling and dueling sounds interesting.
Exactly.
Let's take a look. All right, now I have the board here a little bit more crunched together than it would be. I would normally spread these out because you're going to need to be putting a card in between each of these. I'm just doing it so it fits on the screen a little better. Now, the town hall is always going to be placed here. The sheriff's office is always going to be placed across from it. And the other four are randomized. And each of these buildings, like for example, the bank, also has another side which you can use for one or two players. When you use these buildings, that's the color you are. The character you are, though, you're going to pick from multiple characters. You can be the gambler, the cowgirl, the outlaw, the scout, the banker, the gunslinger, the chief, or the rancher. And each of these has some information on the back about how that works. So once you're done picking which one you're going to be, you can take one that no one used and turn that over to help you out. Now, on each of these, you're going to be keeping track of three different stats. You have money, you have law, and you have gunpowder. And they're going to be kept track here. The most you can have of any one of those is 6. You'll start with one of each. You're also going to start with 3 posse markers that are going to be in your color. 2 will start standing up. 1 starts lying down. You don't get to use that one unless something lets you, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Players are going to be spending turns each round of the game, placing these guys on different spots on the board where they can be placed. There are different areas where you can place them. You'll see them marked. So for example, here you'll see that there's a spot where I can put this guy here. I can place him here. If I put him on this spot, I have to decide whether he's going to go to this side or this side. Now, before any of this happens, players are going to get poker cards each round. So each round, players are going to have poker cards, and these poker cards are going to be drawn from a deck that has 20 poker cards that are numbered from 1 to 5 in 4 different suits. These suits are ranked. And it shows you here, for example, hats are the highest suit, as they should be. And then 5 is the highest, so the 5 hat is the highest card. And so this game is going to be using 3 card hands. So a 5-4-2 is simply a high of 5, while the 3-5 hand, especially if you have the hats in it, is the highest possible hand you can get. So at the beginning of each round, you're going to be placing 1 card face down at the town hall, and then 1 card face up between each of the buildings like this, and then each player is going to get 2 cards and get to keep one of them. Well, one player gets to draw 3 and keep one of them, the gambler. But anyhow, you're going to have those, and those are going to come into play a little bit later in the game. Players are going to be placing things on different spots on the board. Many times when you place something on a spot, you have a decision to make. Like here, do I want to take 1 gunpowder right away, or do I want to try for 2? But if I try for 2, that means I have to have the winning poker hand at this location later on. So that can be a tough one. And also there's a bonus here for whoever does have the winning poker hand at a spot. If I go to this spot here, I can use the building that's there. And at the beginning of the game, only the sheriff's office has a building, but players are going to be buying buildings, and so they'll place them like this underneath the porch, and then I can do something special here. This one takes place during the buying phase. Sometimes the building will take place immediately, like for example here. I can change any number of law points to money plus 2. So I simply can go here and immediately do that. And these buildings are really the whole point of the game because you are trying to get these buildings to win. So players are going to place their workers out. Now occasionally you'll want to place your worker where somebody else is. If you do that, there is a duel. Each player is going to take one of these cool 6-sided dice here that are shaped like bullets, and you will roll that die, and whoever has the higher number wins the duel. However, the attacker can use their force. I keep calling it gunpowder, but it's force. Their force you can spend 1 point of that to re-roll the die, and the defender can use law points to re-roll their die. You can keep doing that. The loser would, am I going to re-roll or not, or I'm just going to accept it. You can also reveal your card, which will be added to your number in the duel. But if you do that, you can only do that once per round. So, and also everyone gets to see what your card is that you have. So if a duel happens, then the person is laid face down on top of whatever space you were fighting over, and the other person who is fighting against you is on top of you to show their domination over you. Ha ha ha. In fact, then they could be beaten by someone else in a duel. That's possible. If you're in a duel and you get knocked down and you took like this law point here, you're fine. But if you were trying to go for this, you no longer can get it once you've been knocked down. So players are going to go back and forth, placing out their two workers. Then the third phase starts, and this is an important part of the game. We reveal this card here. This is the other player, basically someone who's, if you're in a spot and there's no one else there. And then each player is going to reveal their poker cards, and we're going to see who wins in each spot. The two cards next to a spot and your card mark your hand. If there's no one else there, you're playing against this card. So if this card was here, that's a pair of 4s and a 3. And maybe my card, though, is a 4, so I have 3 4s, which beats a pair of 4s, so I'll win this. And when you win this location, if you place your guy here, you'll get this reward. But regardless of where you placed your person, you will also get this. So this is 2 wild resources, which is pretty cool. And so you'll go around and solve each one of these. The town hall is important because whoever wins that hand gets to buy a building first. Each place has a building in front of them. Buildings have a cost at the bottom and resources. So this one costs 4 money. This one costs 2 law, 1 force, and 2 money. And then you'll get these buildings and you'll place them underneath the porch of your building. And if you already have a building there, it will replace that one, although these icons at the top will stay there. Those icons are important. These are worth points at the end of the game, and these icons could possibly be points at the end of the game. Because whoever is the winner of the duel at the town hall is going to get to move one of these tokens. So let's say he moves this one. The next turn the winner moves this one. The next turn the winner moves that one. The next turn the winner moves this one. Then they move that one and this one. There's only 6 rounds of the game. There can only be 3 tokens here total, 2 tokens here total, and 1 here total. So eventually you're going to have them like this. And that matters because at the end of the game, you're going to look at all the buildings that you have built, and whoever has the most railroad symbols, for example, is going to get 2 points. But whoever has the most of these shovel symbols is going to get 5 points. Those points are going to be added to the buildings points that you've acquired over the course of the game, and whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. If you don't build a building on your turn, which is very possible, there's a spot here in the sheriff's office where you can place to buy a building that's left over after everyone has a chance to build. And you can also only build a building where you have one of your posse members. So you might want this building in yellow, but if I haven't put one of my workers there, I can't get it. But if you don't build a building, or if you win the sheriff's office poker hand, you can use a 3rd posse worker on your next turn. Also, if you, when you attack somebody else in a duel and you win, if you win a duel, you get the won it card, the outlaw card. And then if you have this card at the end of the game, you get 2 points. But this will be passed around. But at the beginning of phase 3, when we check the poker hands, you also get a wild resource. So getting this card can be handy. Anyway, most points, winner of the game. All right, so here we have Tiny Epic Western. Does it feel Western?
Sort of, not really. I mean, there's a dueling part which sort of feels Western, but the rest of the game more feels like poker.
Well, that's Western.
I guess. I don't consider poker. I consider shootouts and stuff like that. You know, the shootout, the OK
you
Corral.
Watched a Western movie? There's lots of poker. But I think the components and the artwork and
is very
the bullets,
themed,
very
nice.
theme-filled. And even the buildings kind of make sense. Now, it's interesting. This game's designed by Scott Elms, and you can see him pulling from his other games in this. He's designed several games, well, a lot of games over the past few years, and keeping track of the resources. That's straight out of the Tiny Epic Kingdoms. And just things like, you know, the worker placement and just how some of that works. Now, this game has worker placement where you can fight someone else with a duel to kick them off.
Yes.
That's not a new concept. That was done actually very notably, I think, in Carson City, which would be called just Epic Western if they wanted to call it that a name.
Yeah.
Tiny Epic Duels has the combat system, which in concept sounds really cool. I love the bullet dice. They're great. I love the thing that I can attack you and you can defend and we can spend things. I like that. But I personally found like a flaw or two with it. One, let's say Jason rolls a 6 and I roll a 2. Well, why should I even waste my time re-rolling? because I have to roll a 6.
Exactly.
I mean, I could reveal my card, but I don't know what his card is. I mean, there's really no way to tell what someone else's card is. You can guess by where they put their workers and look at the 2 cards next to that, but that's still guessing. They might have gone there because it's a good building.
Yeah, and see, if you lose a duel, I don't think it's that important if you win or lose a duel because
Well, no, I mean, you can get a lot of resources
you
by
might lose
winning.
one resource or not lose one resource that way, but when it comes down to getting the extra resources on the space, it doesn't matter if you won or won or lost the duel because if you have the better poker hand, you still win the good resources whether or not you lost. So you might lose something, and if the guy beats you and you have a better hand than him, he's not going to get anything other than he beat you.
I understand that, but, well, there's the dual card, which gives you that resource thing. I mean, the outlaw
Yes.
card. And also, I just want that spot. But I feel like the duels are not as interesting to me as they could be because you can spend resources and or show your card to win them. But if you're doing that, you're kind of defeating the purpose of why you want to win the duel in the first place.
Yes, and
Although there's one duel that could be very important. That's the +/-1 for cards.
yes. Now, something I feel talking about duels is I don't see the point. I mean, I see the point of having your card secret, but I don't see the point of, okay, I revealed my card. It doesn't matter. Then people see that I have a 4 and I could get a 2, 3, 4 straight in all my things, all the ones that have 2s and 3s next to it. But it doesn't matter if you reveal your card because only two.
Well, technically, you
Two
can only
worker
reveal your
plays.
card once in a duel per round, but you're really not going to be in that many duels per round anyway.
No, exactly.
So you might as well reveal it, in my thing. Now, here's the thing. The poker, we'll talk about that. I love the concept of the poker. I like the idea that the 2 cards in the building, and you have your card and go against everyone else.
Yes.
And I like the spaces where you can add or subtract one or change the suit. That's really cool. I love that concept. The thing is, it's just not cool enough in this game. If you draw 2 bad cards, you can't usually manipulate them enough to win the poker hands. You can't, and it's not like you can bluff in this game. Bluffing means nothing, right?
Correct.
So let's say, for example, there's 2 3s, and I draw a 1. I can't do anything. I can't add 2 to that 1. I can't do anything. I mean, let's say I draw a 1 and a 5. I can't really do anything. So I'll keep the 5 because a pair of 3s and a 5 is better than a pair of 3s and a 1. And I wish there was more ways to manipulate the cards, to do things like, oh, if I go here, I can get rid of my card and draw another one, or things like that. You know, I just didn't feel like there was enough of that. That concept is cool, but it often felt like in the end it came down to, oh, you drew better than me? Well, good for you. You won the poker hand.
But that's poker, and see, to me, the poker is the best thing about the game, but yet the worst thing about the game because I love the poker aspect. I
did too. I just wish there was more.
The idea. I don't think you need to manipulate the cards that much. I like that only one building lets you manipulate. I did feel though that, you know, if you do have a loser hand, what you have to try to do is instead of going for the risky spot, go for the other spot where you get the guaranteed resource, or go for the buildings, the little special buildings that you're collecting, and take one of those things with your thing, because then you're going to get something, a cool power, instead of trying to fight for the resource. So there was ways around it by just going to buildings people aren't going to. There's a lot of things you can do.
I agree on that, and I think that's interesting. And I actually, it sounds like I'm not liking the game. I actually like Tiny Epic Western. I just feel like it could have been more. I feel like the duels were okay, and I feel like the poker was okay, and that's the 2 main things of the game.
Well,
I like the worker placement a lot.
I feel that the biggest part of the poker, and I know this sounds weird, is not going for the building parts where you get your little buildings and your points, but going for the one where you could decide which ones are worth the most at the end.
Amen to that. I agree 100%. And there it does matter because you might not get the cards you need for that.
Yes, and that's the one that matters the most because that's the order of how you pick your buildings. That's the order of, you know, you raise the building that you want to score more points at the end. And I think that that is the most important one out of all of them to go for.
So what's your tiny, I was about to say, what's your tiny awesomeness rating? What's your awesomeness rating for this game?
Well, I liked it. I didn't love it. And like we discussed about the poker aspects, I did like the building aspect, though, of getting the cards and building up your tableau of what you can do, even though they only have 1 power at a time. But overall, like you said, the poker aspect was cool, but could have used a little more. And if you're getting loser hands all the time, there's nothing you can do except sit back and not collect as many resources. So I give it a tiny epic awesomeness rating of 5.
Actually, okay, I gave it a rating of 6 because, again, like I said, I liked it. I just feel like, oh, it could have been so much more. There could have been more ways to do things with the cards, and the dueling just felt a little flat for me. I think it feels Westernish. I love the artwork. I like the concept. I'd like to see, well, I don't want to sound like a broke record, but I would love to see an epic Western. But anyhow, that's Tiny Epic Western from Gameland Games. See you next time.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.